Because it's preparing. Yeah. Setting up our webinar. All right, there's my face. And so what does that? So it took me out of Zoom. Okay. All right. So, okay. So live on YouTube, and it'll start record. Well, it's live now, right? Okay. When I'm ready. Okay. And so now what I need to do is I need to get out of this, and I need to, oh, sorry, I can't minimize when I'm recording. Okay. Get back to my email, and here's the link. Copy link. It did. I'm trying to get into, now I'm trying to get into, well, now I'm not even anywhere. Now I'm Bill. Trying to get back into Blackboard Connect. Yeah, it's gonna kick out everything, right? So can I still log in as me? Do I need to go into something? Okay. Well, I'm not sure how I'll get the information out to people about where the link, because that's what I was gonna do. Okay, that's what I was worried about. I mean, I'm gonna have to do it, because usually it just comes up, but, okay, all right, that's good to know. Oh, I need Blackboard Connect, not just Blackboard, apparently it's more than one thing. Yeah. Log in. I think it's all still there. Message. Never mind, I lost it when I. Oops, select this. Okay, so if I paste that in. Copy the link. I
Hello.
Hi, Matt.
You guys are live on Zoom as well. I mean, live on YouTube as well already. Just so you know, or you have been for a while.
There's Dave.
Hey, Bob, how were you tonight?
Hanging in there. How are you?
Doing well, thanks.
Hi, Maggie. Hey, John.
Hey, good evening. I see a little notification on the top that says live on YouTube. Are we live already, I assume? All right.
Yes.
Good evening, everyone.
So this has been a challenging 2 hours. We've had some technical difficulties, but here we are.
Todd just emailed me and said he's having a hard time getting in. I asked him to make sure that he's got your link instead of mine.
I tried to look at the
Oh, he's coming.
the public access a couple days ago and it wasn't coming in well, so I think it's probably been spotty for a little while now.
He's
Hey, Maggie, just before we get started, your audio is extremely hard to hear.
Oh, okay. Is this better?
No, it's
No.
like we're watching a broadcast of a broadcast.
Okay.
It's
How about this?
It's like you're talking into your phone, but your phone's sitting on a table in the other room.
It probably is. I thought it's in my headphones, so.
Hello.
Todd.
Thank you.
How about now, John?
That's much better.
Thank you.
Loud and clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Folks know, will Jerry and Tom be joining?
Tom's listed as an attendee, so he should be coming in any minute now.
Hey, y'all.
Hi, Ed. Hi, Cody.
So, hang on a
Hello.
second. Is everyone else hearing a repeat of your voices about 20 to 30 seconds after?
I
No,
don't think so.
No.
It's just me. Okay. Well, that's good, I guess. I think it's going to add another challenge for me.
Nothing on my end.
All right, I'm going to mute.
Lori, you don't, and this might be a silly question. You don't have YouTube open or the broadcast open on another tab or something, do you?
I do. So can I close that? Okay, well,
Or just put it on mute, just that tab.
okay, so I just closed that. I'm assuming things are still,
It still says live, so
okay, so it's still working. Okay, and that seems to have stopped. So I think that's it. Okay, thank you. Yep, bye.
Oh, thank God. Wouldn't let me in. I kept watching Lori.
That's what I had initially.
Yeah, I just had Lori.
it looks like that's everybody that's waiting. I haven't seen Jerry yet.
We're about 5 minutes in. Do we want to just start? We haven't heard from her yet.
Yeah, we can. We can just keep an eye out for her.
Well, I think all Jerry have to do is just kind of reboot. I just reboot. I shut mine off, turn it back on, and then it went back in. So maybe if somebody texted her or just told her that, I can do that too.
Yeah, I'm not sure I've seen her name yet.
I haven't
So
either.
I'm not sure. I'll multitask and see. And
I
watch.
I got her on text right now. I can give her a text real quick if you want.
Okay. Yeah, let's wait.
Is this, like, can people access this from Somersworth.com or just some YouTube way?
No, they can access. I've sent out 2 alert nows in the last half an hour. One just recently that had the YouTube link in it, and the other one had this the link to the city's website where it's live streamed. Sometimes the live stream, if you ever watch any of their meetings, sometimes it's not always clear the whole time. Sometimes it's choppy. Sometimes you get some, spinning circle and things along that line as it's buffering. So, we scrambled, and I have some really special people to thank for pulling this together very quickly.
I can definitely attest to that. Oh, now there's an echo. When I was calling into the meeting through my cell phone, I was trying to watch on, and there's a little bit of a delay. It was just a little bit too difficult to follow along that way. So I can definitely attest to that difficult.
well, the difficulty was trying to for me, was trying to pull all this together in a very short period of time. So, but I think we're there, you know, and hopefully everyone's able to access it. You know, we've done the best we can. I mean, we found out at 3:30 this afternoon that the city's channels were down. So, again, I thank my friends at Back Bay Networks for helping me out to get this put together.
I appreciate your scramble. I appreciate your scramble. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I think we might want to get started.
Okay.
Yeah, I could just give you an update if she does text and go from there.
Okay.
Yeah, we
All
could,
right.
I'll keep an eye too if I see her come in.
Okay. So I believe my job tonight is to facilitate this session of the school board. This is a work session, so I have a couple comments that I'll make and just kind of explain to you everyone how this is going to work. As we have done a few times with these workshops, these are public meetings. Again, this is being live streamed, so folks can access this information, this meeting through the city's website and the YouTube channel, and they can also call in. All that information has been sent out again this afternoon. So hopefully everyone who wants to access the meeting can do so. This is a work session and it is a public meeting, but it is not, there is no public comment section on this agenda this evening. So this is, again, an opportunity for the board to do some work on the school reopening plan that they've been working through the last few months. So our time frames tonight is scheduled, this meeting is scheduled for about 2 hours in length. I don't know if we'll need all of that time, but my job as your facilitator is to keep you on track with that, give you warnings as I've done in the past to help you manage your time. Because sometimes we get into deep discussions, sometimes it's easy to lose track of time. So I will be your timekeeper as well. Because this workshop is being done in Zoom, I'm going to ask you to find that raise hand feature that we have built in. And I believe that I can't see it because I'm the host, but I believe, yeah, there you're finding it. You guys are all Zoom pros. It will help me to facilitate, and because sometimes there's lags, delays, clunkiness with the stream in these meetings. So it would help me if you would remember to do that. So again, the purpose of tonight's meeting is to consider the recommended school reopening timeline that Dr. Godomsky and I have proposed to you. There's been a lot of discussion about this with the administration, between people in our office about the many, many variables and factors that go into this. And so the proposed timeline works to try to consider all of that information and all of those things we have to think about to be able to move forward in a safe and methodical fashion for both staff and for students. So I would suggest that kind of the cadence or the agenda of this meeting tonight would be to allow Bob to present the information that he shared with you earlier today, giving additional information and such. I will then be looking for a motion to accept the proposed timeline, and then you can start your discussion, because I really would want to have you focus on, and I hope we'll make every effort to focus on the timeline and moving through that and coming up with something that you all can, we can vote on, or you can vote on, I should say, as we get to the end of our discussion tonight. I'm happy to parking lot some issues, so you know what I mean by that, in the sense of, if there's something else that comes up that we need to discuss later. But I'm hopeful that we can be, mindful of the topic at hand and focus on that. Sometimes it's been a challenge to kind of follow your discussions at times because there's a lot of issues on the table. So if we can focus on the timeline, I think that will help us. And if there's other related issues, we can see where we're at with time and we can move forward from there. So those are my opening comments. So I'd like to turn it over to Bob to explain further detail about his recommendation or our recommendations. And like I said, I'll be looking for a motion and we'll go from there.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. last week, I had sent you the phase 3 plan updates from each of our buildings. And as you can see by those, there's a vast difference in what we can do at each level, each grade level, and in each building, depending on the level of the students, the staffing available, the footprint of the building, a lot of factors that our administrators and staff are managing every single day. So when I did this reopening timeline and Lori and I sat down and discussed this, a couple of assumptions that we went by. One is that this is a very fluid document, and if we can get in more students earlier, then we'll certainly do that. The other assumption was to bring in as many students as possible for in-person learning opportunities. So we based the whole reentry timeline on that. What can we actually do to get kids in the building to give them some kind of on-site opportunities? Now, I just want to remind you before I go down through this plan that there's a different model in each of the building, again, depending on many factors that we're weighing. A lot of these that you're seeing when I talk about grade levels and students, they're not in every day, they're on a rotational basis. And by doing different plans for every building, we feel that for quite a period of time as we bring students in, we can follow the 6-foot social distancing, both on the bus and in the classrooms and in the schools. So we're trying to follow that as long as possible, knowing that we're going to reach a point at some point, and I'll speak to that as I get deeper into the reentry plan, some point where it will be physically impossible to distance at 6 feet. So like I said, we think that we can do this type of reopening timeline and still handle the distancing, handle the safety, the education, as well as the staffing. So presently in each of the buildings, at Idlehurst, we've got kindergarten students, we've got students that are receiving services, as well as identified at-risk students and preschool students. So we've got, in all of our buildings now, we've got between 60 and about 130 students a week coming in for some sort of in-person learning activities. At Maplewood, we've got grade 3 students, students receiving services, and identified at-risk students for that may be struggling with remote learning and bringing those students in as well. At the middle school, we've got grade 6 coming in a rotational basis. Again, students receiving services and identified at-risk students having those opportunities to pull those kids in as well. At the high school, we've got 9 specific classes that are coming in. And students that are receiving service, and then other students that are at risk that could use extra assistance. We've got those students in as well. And at the CTC Center, we've got year 2 students with opportunities for coming in for in-person learning opportunities. Now, if we look forward a little bit, starting on January 25th, which is the semester change for the high school. That's why that's another important time for us. We feel that we can have 9 new classes coming in for in-person learning, as well as all of the students that I've previously identified as coming into the building. So this is in addition to. And also CTC adding year 1 student opportunities as well. We can't quite pull off electives yet, but we feel that we can do the core classes for adding year 1 students at that point to the CTC. Starting February 8th, we are looking to add additional students at Idlehurst and Maplewood. It would be an opportunity, again, this isn't every day, but it would be on a rotational basis so we can handle the numbers within our footprint and on the buses. Grade 1 would have an opportunity. And again, that would be added to the students already coming in. So the kindergartens would stay on their rotational basis, as well as the special ed students and other students that are at risk that we're identifying. And also Maplewood, same thing, grade 4 would start coming in with everybody that we've identified already in grade 3 and the other students on a rotational basis. Now, starting on February 15th, we feel that we can add an additional 8 classes to the high school. We are identifying the classes that we both feel that we can staff effectively for in-person learning, and we are identifying the groups of students that can come in. If we have an identified class for in-person learning and we get a large number of students and we do have some students that are not comfortable with coming back in the building yet, if we get students in that particular class that are not comfortable coming in, then that class will have to be canceled, be put as a remote class, and we will try to add an additional class elsewhere. So it's constantly reevaluating this as we go. So on the 15th, we're looking at adding an additional 8 high school classes. And then as we move through, the next cut point that we've got is after February break, March 1st. At that point, we would be looking at grade 2 in Idlehurst, grade 5 at Maplewood, grade 7 students at the middle school, and 9 additional classes. Again, these are all added to the students that we're already bringing in. 9 additional students coming into classes, 9 additional classes coming into the high school. And again, we would try to rotate our numbers and have specific days on a rotational basis to make sure that we can continue with the social distancing, as well as making sure that we have adequate numbers of staffing available. On March 15th, and this is staff dependent, we are looking to start bringing in grade 8 to the middle school. Again, when I say staff dependent, we have a number of staffing situations with health concerns or other concerns. We have situations where we may have maternity leaves, we may have other life situations that come up that we still have to cover those positions. And we have right now a number of teaching positions that we're covering because of those leaves, approved leaves. And it leaves other positions open. Right now, I think we have 4 or 5 paraprofessional positions that have been open for a while. We've advertised for them and we haven't been able to fill those. So when I say staffing, in each of our buildings, that staffing situation is unique to that building. And then I reinforce tentative timeline. I put down May 3rd after April break, all students district-wide phase 4. Now, obviously, we have a long way to go before we get there, and I can't with certainty tell you that we're going to be ready for that. That's really based on the vaccine coming out sooner than later. The time frame that we have for the vaccine is March to May. I don't know whether that means early March or late May. That's going to make a big difference on the speed that we can make this change and if we're able to make this change. So again, I reinforce that this is a tentative timeline. Now, if we get anywhere in this timeline, anything that I've just explained, and either the staffing is working out, the vaccine is working out, the social distancing is working out, everything's working fine, then we will add more students and bring them in a more rapid manner. We're not looking to slow things down, but we're being realists on safety and what we can pull off along the way. Other points for consideration, and there are many, and these are just a couple of topics. COVID management for symptoms, close contacts, positive cases, etc., will be managed in an ongoing fashion as per recommendations from the Department of Health and Human Services. There hasn't been a day that has gone by in months that in each of our buildings, we haven't been doing this. We have had daily students that have notified us that they have symptoms, staff that have symptoms, relatives that have tested positive, and we do contact tracing. So when that happens, there are people that we isolate, students that are in isolation, and then they go for a COVID test. If that COVID test comes back negative, then at that point in time, what we've done has worked and we can proceed with the way we've been doing business. If it comes back positive, immediately we go deeper with contact tracing, put additional people and students in isolation, and go from there. So it's an ongoing, it happens every single day that we're managing these types of symptoms to make sure that we don't have further spread and larger outbreaks. We'll continue to utilize the safeguards for the staff and the students, everything from PPE. We have a great deal of sanitizer. We're cleaning the buildings repeatedly, both during the day and in the evenings. So we will continue to utilize everything we have, temperature checking, all of those safeguards that we can put into place. We'll continue to do that. Another point for consideration is the memorandum of agreement with the teachers and the other unions. That certainly needs to be discussed further as we proceed through this. Transportation will be monitored and adjusted as needed. Presently, we're utilizing transportation not only for the pickup and delivery of students, but we're also using it for food service. That will be monitored as we go. For what we've got planned here for the phased reentry, we feel that we can utilize the transportation in a safe manner, which would mean up to one student per seat. Okay, so that's about 21 students that we can fit on any particular bus. As we get deeper into phase 3 and certainly in phase 4, we are not going to be able to physically distance on a bus. So that's something to keep in mind later on. Food service, we've continually adjusted that. We're in the near future, we're going to continue with on-site and off-site delivery of meals. So whether the students are on-site for their in-person learning opportunity or if they're remote, we'll continue to do the delivery of meals as well. As grade levels return to person, right now, because we have been in remote learning and modified remote learning, we've been able to take care of staff requests, whether it was childcare due to COVID, elder family members, health issues, any number of requests that we've been able to monitor. We are going to reach a point and we need to decide as a board what that point is, that staff will no longer be able to be out other than ADA accommodations. So when we have more and more students in the building and we can no longer accommodate teaching remotely, at that particular time, everybody would be back in the building except for those teachers that would fall under ADA accommodations, which we would certainly take care of. We are certainly hopeful that all staff members will take advantage of the vaccine when it comes out. Again, I'm hearing a March, May timeframe. I'm also hearing that might speed up. I certainly hope so. But we are encouraging people to take advantage of that. Obviously, that's a choice on everybody's part. That's not something that we can mandate. So that's something to keep in consideration as well. And then ultimately, when we get to phase 4 and all students are back in the building, that we would need all of the loaned technology devices, because we've loaned many technology devices out. All of those technology devices would have to come back because we'd then have to be utilizing them within the building. So that's our recommended timeline. And again, it serves the assumption that we want to get as many kids in the building as we can. And it also serves, like I said, doing it in a safe and methodical manner, not only for safety, but also for adequately staffing it as well. So that's the recommendation that I'm bringing forward to you tonight.
Yes, Steve.
I'd like to make a motion to accept the reopening timeline as presented by Dr. Domsky.
Second.
I had my hand up for that.
I was going to say, you had your hand up, Matt. So I think this is the time for discussion. So if you are interested in a comment, if you could raise the hand icon, it just helps me to make sure that I capture everyone. Matt?
So, as I'm sure a lot of you remember, when we first met back in the first week in March and we decided to pull out. My main concern then is still my main concern now, which is that people who have health risks, both students, families, and staff, who need or want a remote option have that. We keep talking about choice and how all these people, want choice. Well, choice for some people means they want to be in, some means they want to be out. And some people, when they say choice, that they mean that, I want to be in, but if people want to be out, then they should be able to be out. And what I'm seeing throughout the plans, and, Bob and I spoke earlier today, we're very quickly, once we get in here and we realize how things match up between students and staff, who's in, who's out, those remote options begin to dramatically diminish to the point where they are non-existent. So we need to keep that in mind. That's one of the reasons why I have a hard time moving very quickly without a vaccine. I've always, from the very beginning, tried to advocate for those people, and I see that going away very quickly, especially in some of these buildings. It's going to be different in all of them. I can see that Idlehurst, I don't want to get into nitpicking the individual plans, so I'll stay away from that. But some of them can keep it a little bit longer than others, and some of them are going to diminish almost immediately. And so when we talk about choice, we have to understand that to push towards one, you remove the other, right? I mean, we made a choice to start in remote learning and really focus on remote learning. And we've come up with one of the better, more robust remote learning plans in the state, from what I've heard. But that was obviously at the opportunity, that was at the detriment of the opportunity and the in-person option, the opportunity and the quality of that. When we move towards in-person, it's going to be at the detriment of the availability and the quality of remote, to the point where it almost disappears. So I just want to make that statement.
Cody?
Yes, thanks. I had a couple questions on the plan. Mostly, first, just about actually, it's kind of both questions. Is with the high school, the two kind of break points, so they changed the semester, adding 9 classes. And then I guess my question was about the February 15th, adding an additional 8 classes. What's February 15th? Is that just because it's a few weeks later and it kind of makes sense to slowly roll in, or is there another change there that kind of makes sense for those classes?
Yeah, we're trying to add classes that we're still doing research on the classes that we can add. Again, at the high school level, you may have freshmen, sophomores, juniors all in one class. So it's not like you can bring in, a grade level. And we're looking at, I know Chris Tebow is looking at the classes that make sense, that we can get students into the in-person learning. There's a lot of a balancing act going on with that, Cody. So they're trying to get 9 classes off right at the change. And then the next phase would be looking at what classes they can then pull in. So there's not a natural cut point there. It's just a matter of that's when they feel like they can get the next 8 in comfortably.
And then it's similar to my next question, was about the middle school. So with, let's see, on January 25th, the high school and CTC are adding in some. On the February 8th, Idlehurst and Maplewood are. February 15th, the high school is. And it's not until March 1st that SMS adds another grade. And I was just wondering what that was, and if there was a way to add that grade sooner.
See, the middle school every building offers some unique challenges. And at the middle school, you've got class sizes are such that you can't, like if I look at kindergarten, the class sizes are such that we can socially distance in the classroom. We've got 1 remote teacher, we've got 5 in, it works. At the middle school level, we've already got a robust online remote program over there. And we feel like if we do that too early, then it's really going to break that down. So we just felt that these are the times that we can safely get the kids in and manage everything that needs to be managed. And a lot of it comes down at all of the levels a lot of it comes down to the staffing that we have available. And it's not just the plans for staff that may be out for COVID related reasons. Every single year we have, like I said, maternity leaves and other things that come up, that health reasons or operations and those types of things that we have to cover. So this is just when working with the building principals, they thought it was the best manageable time.
Then another question is, just after looking through the plans and just reading through this, or the building individual plans and just this reopening timeline, it really, like, it's clear what we've been talking about since, last March, that a hybrid model adds so many hurdles, so many barriers, so many logistics to figure out. And we've talked about how every change, every little change that we make to the model adds, is almost like starting over. We're changing, tweaking little plans, adding one more grade. And there's just a lot of energy that has gone into that. And I guess my question is about, with admin and just creating these plans, was there discussion about, is it worth skipping phase 3 if we can put more energy into making phase 4 happen any sooner?
Well, I think that I'm not sure we can make phase 4 happen any sooner, because when phase 4 happens, when we bring all of the students in, we are not social distancing anymore, because we cannot social distance with that many students involved. So, as much as I would love to say there's a way that we can back phase 4 up, short of the vaccine coming out much earlier, I'm not sure that we can do that in a safe manner. And on top of that, I'm not sure that we can staff that in a safe manner. So yes, you're absolutely right. Every step we take, every additional student we bring into the building is a monumental amount of work. But to this point in time, our staff and administration have been doing an amazing job. Now, remember, they had all summer long, because we stipend people to come in and prepare for remote learning. Everything we're doing now, we're doing without any dedicated time. So, people are, in addition to their teaching job, they are planning not only the remote lessons they're doing and the hybrid lessons, but we're also planning for the next phase. So I honestly, Cody, I don't think that there's anything we can do, in my opinion, to safely get to phase 4 any sooner than, phase 4 kind of happens organically. I'm not sure how we rush that safely.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Ed, I know you had your hand up, but you put it down. So did you have a question or comment?
No, comments. Yes, I figured I wouldn't keep it up while I was waiting.
No, I'd rather you do, so I'm making
Okay.
a list. But
All right, fair
Go
enough.
ahead.
Thanks for clearing up that
Yep,
practice.
you're welcome.
So we've talked a lot about options so far and transition in through hybrid. We talked a little bit about the difficulties in getting there and sort of the step phase to get us to 4. The good thing about the internet is that the good thing, and sometimes the bad thing, is that things stay around forever. So I'm curious to know how much of the planning work for remote lessons has been archived and can be reutilized in not only in the rest of this school year, but in the coming school years.
Ed, I think that's a great question, but I'd like to parking lot that one.
Okay,
because
fair
I'm
enough.
not sure that that's as germane to the timeline, but
Okay.
I think that's a legitimate question as we go forward. So,
Okay.
all right.
Fair enough. Yep,
Okay.
I'll continue on with my thoughts here. I just
Okay.
thought it related as we continue a remote option, whether we're all in and we're still providing a remote option for if we're in phase 4 and we're still offering a remote option for people to opt out, as we've allowed people to opt in, and some other communities have offered that as an opt-in, opt-out sort of feature. I'm still curious to know how the state sanctioned remote learning tool has functioned and how that's the successes and troubles with that. But as we're talking about transitioning to a phase 4 fully in, I think that's pertinent to the discussion. So I do feel like there's ability to utilize, not recycle, but I guess that's a good word. Recycle some of the content that's been created as we move forward with this. In hearing a little bit more about the social distancing complexities as we move forward, having recently had not direct contact, but indirect contact, and having people within my larger friend group having and family group having contact and indirect contact and diagnosis of COVID. I'm here to say today that I feel that going forward, we need to go forward in a matter which allows for social distancing. And especially as we think about that a little bit further, as I think about it from the lens of being on the Building, Grounds and Transportation Committee and thinking about the air quality in our buildings, needing the HVA system for our middle school. So I'm here to say today that I don't think that we should be in phase 4 till we have that. I know there's been some recent mentions of some potential funding sources for that. I'm excited to explore that further within the committee. Just sort of seeing if I have any more initial comments. Give me a second. I think I'll pass it along from now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Tom, you had your hand up. Are you have a comment that you want to make, or would you like me to move forward?
You can move forward.
Okay. All right. Steve, I believe you were next. Oops. All right, Steve. There you are.
Sorry, I think it was Todd had his hand up.
Well, I had you and then Todd. I think you were close. So whichever one.
Thank you, Todd. Dr. Gomsi, quick question. As I spoke about at the last meeting, is there, I hope, some collaborative work where we're going to have a meeting with the teachers union to review the MOA and basically gauge their thoughts on what they believe is possible and not possible?
I think that meeting is in the process of being set up. I know that Matt and Ed have had discussions, and that's the natural next step, Steve. You're right.
Okay. I would just preface that we should make that a priority for us to get completed. Thank you.
Okay. All right, Todd.
All right, so okay. So I just want to share some thoughts, and then I also have some questions. First, I appreciate the plan being forwarded. That was something that was requested by the board, direction that was given. And so I appreciate it being forwarded to us tonight. I think it's clear that the Hilltop City is a divided community on this Thursday. I think most would agree that we're divided in our approach, but united in our love and compassion for our children, parents, caregivers, teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, nurses, custodians, and really all members of our school teams. As I have said in the past, that a school is simply a building if it's without teachers. As a caring people and as employers, we have a responsibility to reasonably minimize the risk to them. And I suspect most would agree. Now, that being said, the risks need to be weighed out with the risk we are losing our children to extreme learning challenges and mental health difficulties, some with already underlying challenges, remote learning, through remote learning that has worsened, and others experiencing new mental health distress, including major depression, that the remote situation has created. And I have heard from many parents and caregivers, and a number of educators as well, that have shared this with me, and I'm sure everyone on this board, and I'm certain that the administrators are aware as well. So I think that we need to try a balance, and we know it won't be a perfect one. Chair Hanlon indicated earlier that in which I agree with, and I made a similar comment recently to a constituent, that the more we push in one direction, we're pulling in the other. All right, so I recognize that. So it's not going to be, and we know this, a perfect solution. But we're trying to find one that mitigates risks to all and maximizes success and well-being for all. So in my view, it's not staying the course, nor is the balance a near immediate return to full-time learning, that type of normalcy either. But it does involve moving forward. So I think, as I think we're on course tonight, we need to set a date to move forward tonight. I think the community expects it, and our children deserve it. Now, that said, a few questions I have. We had mentioned, as part of the plan, there are various grades mentioned during this rollout. And I just want to confirm, I believe I had heard, or whether it's grade 3 or 6 or others, I thought I'd heard that the intention really is it's more of a rotation for these. Is that correct?
Yeah, it looks a little bit differently in every building at each grade level.
All right. So what are your thoughts, your initial thoughts on what a rotation might look like for grade 4? Or I'm not asking you to, I recognize it's fluid, but is the initial thought 1 day a week, 2 days a week? What's the thought process?
At the 4th grade, with the staffing we have available and the numbers in the classroom and the distancing that we have, I think it would be 4 or 5 per classroom per day on a rotational basis. And then, as I put in here, if there's students that are either receiving services or identified at-risk students, then some of those students would be doubled up during the week, as we're doing at other grade levels as well.
Okay, so we're talking groups of children throughout the day, 4 or 5, like rotating throughout the day and the week?
The particular model that we're looking at presently at Maplewood would have approximately 20 to 25 students per grade level per day. Because that would allow us also, allow us sufficient room in classrooms and on the bus and cafeteria and common areas for grade 3 students, as well as the other students that we've identified. So as I said, Todd, it will look differently at each of the buildings depending on many factors. And the charge really is going to be on the time frame. And then it's the hard work goes back to the building administration and the staff to actually pull it off.
Okay, all right, thank you. Now, you had mentioned in your presentation that I think he was talking about the high school, that if one child, for various reasons, is unable or parents are unwilling to send the child to school, that would potentially cancel that particular class. Is that correct?
It probably won't occur for one child, but what I did say was if a number of children in the same class cannot or will not come on site, then it does present a challenge because it's impossible for a classroom teacher to be teaching both remotely and on site at the same time. So that's part of the, Cody asked a few minutes ago about bringing in 8 more classes and what's the significance. Those are a lot of the things that we need to check out as we move into the new semester. What classes can we offer on site? And on top of that, check with the students to see who is coming in. In talking to Principal Tebow about, I don't know, a couple of months ago, it was almost 85% of the students that would be willing to come on site and felt comfortable being on site. And recently in his data and surveys have come down to about 65% of the students being comfortable with coming on site. So I think some of that has to do with the spike in COVID over the holidays. I mean, obviously, we've gone from the fall being in a quite comfortable situation to now where, and I'm hoping it's trending down now, but we were in a community-wide and statewide, we were in a very uncomfortable place right around the holidays. So let's hope that will continue to kick in the right direction.
Thank you. What are your thoughts regarding students who, for various reasons, do not feel comfortable returning to school? Are there alternatives?
Well, I from time to time, I hear people bring up a choice of whether you're in or you're out. And we simply don't have enough staffing to be able to offer choice to everybody. Now, if you look at the models that we've brought forward to you so far, we are offering choice up to this point in certain areas because we have the ability to do that. I'll use kindergarten as an example. We have one remote teacher, fully remote teacher, and the rest of the teachers are teaching a rotational in person. So for all intents and purposes, that is choice for kindergarten, whether they stay home, do fully remote, or come into an in-person. But for other classes, we're not going to have that option. And certainly when we get to phase 4, it really is at phase 4, except for special circumstances. There may be some students that for medical or emotional reasons can't come back into the building, and we'll make adjustments for that. But for all intents and purposes for phase 4, when we're back in phase 4, in-person is the only option.
Okay, and just two more questions. I notice, and you did cover this, 8th grade is the only grade that indicates staff dependent. I recognize the challenges that you mentioned, and nobody has a crystal ball. But is there a potential of the 8th grade potentially not returning this school year?
I think that I'm not sure there's a potential of them not returning, but I would say that every grade level in every school has the potential for staff challenges. We've identified, like I said, we've got the kind of normal and traditional maternity leaves and those things compounded by we may have staff members that don't feel comfortable coming back at all, even after the vaccine in phase 4 in May. And if staff members choose at that point to either leave, resign, retire, whatever it may be, it still offers us some extreme challenges.
Thank you. And my last question this time around is, at the last school board meeting, we had briefly, well, I had mentioned, I noticed in the administrator updates, the in-school remote learning center option, or options that some students have been given that have been identified. Sort of in-school remote learning with sounds like with that provides some structure, some guidance, some sort of passive guidance to kids. Any chance of that reasonably expanding as sort of a bridge during this process?
Yeah, that has expanded, and it will continue to be monitored. We have students that, like I said, some that come in as a like a kindergarten student or a third grade student that may be coming in for additional time in the building, that because they're identified as you mentioned. And at each of our buildings, we've got staff members, administrators, team members that review students weekly. And if they identify a student, or if a parent has called in, then we do everything we can to either have in-person opportunities, or we also set up what we might call check-ins or monitoring systems where students will check in with our guidance counselors twice a week or 3 times a week at special times. So some of the challenges with that, Todd, are, again, staffing. If we bring in 30 to 35 students, which I believe the high school had 35 students in their kind of at-risk in-person opportunity. But each building, we've got to monitor that as well. So if we pull a person, a paraprofessional or a teacher, to be in that area, then they can't be doing services remotely or anywhere else. So we do look at that. We are looking at that, and I would say that every parent that I know, that every parent that called in, we've attempted to address the situation. Obviously, sometimes we can address it very well, and other times it's a challenge. But we try to do as best we can with that.
All right. Thank you.
John?
Hi, thank you. So, a couple of things. There's a lot of things that come to mind, but I guess for me, the first thing is, I know this is a public meeting. I'm sure there's plenty of people watching. I know there's folks who are probably dialed in as well. Could be wondering, well, what are we hearing as board members? What's the rest of the community? Because people, I'm sure, are in their own home saying, I know what I think. I'm guessing it's likely they're sitting there thinking, I want to return to in-person learning as soon as possible. So we've received many emails from members of the community this week leading up to this meeting, and they all are advocating strongly for us returning to school as soon as possible. Maybe one exception was more of a question, but it still started with let's return to in-person learning. Many of those letters were very strongly worded and in support of returning to in-person learning, citing things like Dover's going back in person, Farmington is already in person, has been, Rochester's going back into in-person after taking a hiatus. There's probably a good 100+ schools across New Hampshire that are in person. I think that one of the key things for me is that we need to stop talking about this false dichotomy of social distancing versus being able to bring people in the buildings. We have a multi-layered safety approach here that's been outlined in the phase 3 plans that would really, suit phase 4 as well. All the work that went into trying to figure out, traffic patterns in the school and how do we handle lunches and things like that, and, temping kids in. All of those things will apply to phase 4. So all that hard work can be leveraged, but just in a full in-person model. But I really think that we need to get away from, well, actually, there's a couple of false dichotomies. I mean, there's a false dichotomy about not being able to social distance 6 feet, which is an arbitrary, kind of distance. It's a guideline when possible, right? but with a multi-layered approach, with temping, with all these things, if we need to forego that, which in the phase 3 plans, there was multiple mentions of areas, whether it's at the middle school or in school buses, where we would not be able to maintain 6 feet. And that is something that we have to accept. If you go to get your haircut, you're not going to maintain 6 feet of distance. There are situations where that occurs. The other false dichotomy is about, is about the vaccine, right? I mean, obviously, I think very encouraging that the vaccine rollout's happening. We're going into phase 1B. Great to see, and it would have been awesome to have educators part of phase 1B. That wasn't to be, obviously, but that's affecting the overall trajectory of the pandemic. Again, the data has shown consistently, studies that the CDC itself has published show that COVID is not spreading in schools at a significant rate, or even a measurable difference from outside of schools in the study that was just recently published about 2-3 weeks ago. So I think when we're talking about what are the constraints, we talked earlier about our strategy, this going back to August, that we would take a slow and methodical reentry approach. We were all taking a sort of a risk-averse approach to this, which made sense at the time, given how much we didn't know. Here we are, a year into this pandemic, we do know a lot now. And so obviously I'm not advocating anything reckless, but I don't think that the philosophy of this very slow and methodical reentry is the best approach for us now. I don't agree with that. I think that at this point, the voice of the citizens of the city and the data are all pointing to the fact that we should be striving to move our kids to in-person learning. And looking at the phase 3 plans and having gone through that, thinking about the trade-offs that were outlined in some of them. For example, in the middle school, there being no more academic support available. I mean, that's a big trade-off to make, to be able to go into a hybrid mode where, at least for 6th graders, there's not even any difference. They're in 1 day a week. They're still in 1 day a week. So I think that for me, the phase 3 plans are overly complex. I think that they're logistically untenable. I don't think they bias really anything. And I think the goal should still be to move to in-person learning as soon as feasible. I mean, and feasible for me isn't like in a week or two. I mean, there's obviously still more planning, despite all the great work that went into the phase 3 plans in terms of logistics. So I'm certainly not in support of moving into phase 3, and I definitely would like to see us moving into phase 4 much sooner. I think for me, it's well, I won't put a date out there. I'm curious what others think about the discussion, but I have a lot of other things that I think needs to be discussed, but those were a couple of the key things at first that I wanted to share top of mind.
Okay, thanks, John. Matt?
I got 3 things real quick. Just to kind of get a confirmation of what I heard, and it kind of bounces off of what John just said, which was, Bob, you had said that basically when we get in fairly far into phase 3 and definitely phase 4, remote is dead. It does not exist.
Well, I think that in phase 3, depending on what the models are, we certainly could have some remote opportunities along with that. When we get to phase 4, it is going to be very difficult to offer any kind of a remote situation because we've got all of our staff occupied at that point. So in phase 3, as I've outlined here, there may be some opportunities for remote opportunities and in person, but it is impossible, and I would never expect staff members to be teaching remotely and in person at the same time.
Right. So what I've heard from a lot of people in their emails and when they've come to the meetings is they want a choice. A choice doesn't mean that we flip the switch and there's only one choice. That would mean I want everybody in and that's it. They're all saying, most of them are saying choice. I think that people need to understand that what we're going to do is eliminate one. You're not going to have a choice is what's going to happen. When you hit phase 4, that's the choice. That's it. There is no choice. With the exception of severe cases, it's in or nothing. You get no education from Somersworth. unless you've got a severe issue where we're going to try to find a way to make it work. In most cases, that's it. That's just what it's going to be. So people need to understand it. It's not going to be a choice. It's not going to be a la carte. It's going to be out when you get to phase 4. You're in or you're not, because teachers are not going to be doing both. We're not going to have enough staff to do both. And Bob, that's basically what you're saying. Once you hit 4, you're in, you're out. Correct?
Well, phase 4 by definition is all in. So if we're all in phase 4, then it would be very difficult staff-wise to offer anything other than that.
Okay, so I have 2 more points real quick. One, we have partners that we work with. So we've got Back Bay for the IT. We have the food services, as we've mentioned, and the busing. I know some of that's going to change, especially as you get closer to phase 4 too. I'm assuming we've had meetings with them. We're going to continue to meet with them to figure out how that's going to work out.
Yeah, Back Bay, SLC, transportation, food service. We've had constant conversations, and I can't speak highly enough of all of those organizations working very collaboratively with us.
Now, the last thing is, I know our custodial, they do a great job all the time. And it's hard for them to keep the schools as clean as they do right now. And they do a fantastic job. And that's a lot of work for them to do it. And they're very clean. We're going to be asking them to do more cleaning. And, if they end up getting short staffed due to illness or whatever, because they're going to be under the same rules as everybody else. We talked about hiring extra custodians and what that cost is going to be, and moving in that direction, because I'm assuming we're going to need it. It's going to be doing more cleaning.
Yeah, as we move forward, depending on what kind of rules we set down, John brought up the social distancing. The CDC is, has said that they've reduced their recommendation to 3 feet for students and 6 feet for adults. But that's something that when we get to that point, the social distancing, it has to be a conscious choice by this board that's what you're going to do. Because my statement of we cannot social distance at 6 feet, we can't. So if it's an agreement with the board and the unions about reducing that to 3 feet and then 6 feet for adults, then that changes some of the dynamics. If I look at Dover coming in K4, they were supposed to come in this week and they had a situation where they couldn't because of obviously monitoring and managing the situation. But I asked them how they could do that, and they are not doing social distancing at 6 feet. They've reduced it to 3 feet. So, you have to, that is a decision that ultimately will have to be made. And, I also heard John talk about Farmington is in, and I talked to the superintendent today, and they're going through a heck of a time with staffing. She had to cover a social studies class yesterday because they didn't have staffing, and one of the secretaries had to cover a class because they didn't have enough staffing there. And she was very concerned that she's not going to have enough bus drivers to actually get the kids to school. And they're not social distancing on the buses; they're just putting everybody on. So, that's why the challenges are out there. Our district's doing it. Yeah, some districts are in, but they're not social distancing. They're not social distancing on a bus. They're filling. If we want to put 60 kids or 90 kids in a cafeteria when 2 teachers are out and we can't staff that classroom, then we can do that. But to me, that's not education. So, the challenges are real and the challenges are there.
All right, Maggie?
Thank you. Yes, a couple of questions. Let's see. The proposal here, is it, and I understand they're all different, so I'm just trying to get a feel of it. Will the students coming in, the very few number of students, be doing remote work in their setting along with their, peers at home?
Well, a couple of things. I wouldn't call it the few number that we're bringing in. I mean, it's going to be well over hundreds of 100 kids. So
I mean, per classroom, like the per classroom. I'm just envisioning one classroom.
again, Maggie, it depends on grade level and situation. Some will be doing some remote learning in the classroom with their peers and with their teacher, depending, and others may be doing completely in person while they're there. It really depends on the situation.
Okay. I'm concerned about the equal access to education. Are we giving, you know, the 14th our constitutional, you know, guideline, are students getting equal opportunity for education? And the same thing of being, not knowing if they're going to be a little bit remote or, you know, what that looks like. It's a bit confusing to me. And I've been listening and reading all the information about school reopening. So that's the one thing that I'm trying to make sense of this, and I'm trying to, you know, take into mind people listening to our broadcast and what their questions are, and, you know, that level of communication. Would phase 4 be so, or, you know, whatever we'd like to do, half in, half out, be so off of our being able to do that? Would that not be possible because of staffing issues primarily as the number one? I'm sure there's other reasons as well.
Well, to take your question on equal access, we've spent a lot of time, discussion, and effort in making sure that we've addressed all of those situations from starting in August, when we handled, I think, every technology request that came in, to do our best in taking care of those. And then I know that Nancy has had constant conversations with our building administrators to make sure that anybody with special needs or special circumstances receives the services that they need. So we've certainly been working hard to make sure that equal access is there.
Okay. The other thing, you know, I'm just trying to be more cut and dry with this situation, because I feel like I'll always look to the experts on this more than my personal opinion or my personal, you know, family, you know, situation. Is that, you know, our Academy of Pediatrics is saying 3 feet, it should be fine for kids, and the under 10 kids, 10 and under, are able to go back to school safely and not transmit COVID to, you know, each other and adults. It's just the information out there widely says that we can do this safely. We can return safely as mitigation strategies are in there. But, you know, it can't be overlooked that we're a community that we have been very slow. The majority of our students have not been back to school. I'm trying to understand what our biggest hurdle is and put energy into that won't allow for in-person learning. I still don't understand that to the level of where I can make a decision and where I can go. Again, looking at CDC, Dartmouth, Hitchcock, our governor, you know, American Academy of Pediatrics saying we are able to go back in. Students can go back into their school with these mitigation strategies, and they won't be, you know, contributing to COVID outbreaks and things like that. I mean, it will be a year in March. And I'm wondering what, you know, our biggest hurdle of not being able to go into phase 4 sooner than later, you know, within the next 4 weeks, if that's not possibly because of staffing concerns, and what we can do to address those concerns from our staff, and what we can do to help move that along.
Yeah, I think the biggest hurdle, and you know, I don't mean to be vague, but the biggest hurdle is the pandemic. I mean, the number of issues that it is arising on a daily basis is more than I can even explain. And you know, the staffing issues, and it's certainly not their fault. I mean, we have on any day, we have a number of staff that are either in isolation, quarantine, contact tracing. You know, and each staff member that is out, we cannot afford to cover them right now. Not afford money wise, but we have no bodies to cover them right now. Right. And the other biggest hurdle that I keep coming back to is you have an MOA that says 6 feet of social distancing. Social distancing is something that we cannot do when we get a large number of students in the building or on the bus. So again, that has to be changed. And if you look around the state, and I hear time to time, why are we going so slow? Why are we moving this way? If you look around the state, we're not the only ones. And I know that people will say, well, there's hybrid going on here and they're all in there. I have yet to see a situation that has even a hybrid that is operating at a pace that is beneficial to students. They're in, they're out, they're covered in an auditorium. And again, if we go in, if you were to tell me that, we want phase 4 in 2 weeks or 4 weeks, we would do phase 4 in 4 weeks. And the first day that we'd back, I would bet anything that we would be doubling up on classes. We would be having classes in cafeterias because of staff that were either in quarantine or in isolation. We would have a number of situations where we would have to do contact tracing and go back out. Every school that I'm aware of that is doing any kind of hybrid model has been constantly in and out and in and out. And if that's acceptable, which I think is a large disruption to our educational process, again, I would love to get more kids into the building. If I could do it tomorrow and snap my fingers and do it safely and effectively, I would certainly do that. But like I said, talking to all of our administrators and our staff and working through this, I mean, we've had countless hours of conversations on this. This is the best shot that we think we can bring forward for everybody. And it's not, I would say that the feedback is not one-sided that I'm hearing. There's some very loud feedback about, I want my students back into the building, certainly. But I have also had phone calls and emails and conversations with people that say, Baba, I don't think I'm comfortable with my child going back into the building. I just had one of those this afternoon with a parent that was really struggling with, I want my child back in school, but I don't think that I'm ready to do that yet because I don't think that it's safe. So it's those feelings that we're battling, as well as, like I said, the staffing and the social distancing.
Okay, and this would be a quick question, and it's more for my board as well, just to think about. Why wouldn't we just remain in remote for the rest of this year? Why wouldn't we just? I don't think we would be. I think we'd be the far minority in doing that as a school district in New Hampshire. But what would be a counter example of just staying in remote? In my feeling, it would be a detriment to many students, especially younger ones, that haven't met their teachers or met many staff. But why wouldn't we just stay in remote for the rest of this year?
I'll answer that, Maggie, with my professional opinion. My professional opinion is that staying in remote for the remainder of the school year, it would go against everything that all of these concerns that we're hearing. Students do need to be in the building. Students do need social interaction. We need to get them those in-person opportunities as much as possible. I'm a big proponent of that, and I would not come to you and say, I wasn't necessarily a proponent of being fully remote in September either. I think that students need those types of opportunities, and I wouldn't really recommend that we just kind of boot it and stay in remote for the remainder of the year. I don't personally think that that's, at least at this point, I don't think that I would recommend that.
And we do have, again, just the last thing, we have received quite a bit of money to bolster our mitigation strategies for safety for our staff and for our students to the building. And we may be getting more, but we do have multi-layers of, from filtration and masks and things like that in our school buildings. Again, for people to hear that we do have this safety web of within the schools to mitigate COVID spread and that risk.
We do have many things in place, and we'll continue to do that. I just, I think unless you've experienced it, it's very hard to kind of picture it and understand that with all of these precautions in place, everything from, spacing out on the buses to when you get off the bus, staying 6 feet apart, coming in, temping your way into the building. Once you get into the building with the mask and the hand sanitizer and you get to your seat and you have a plastic plexi surrounding in front of you that may be portable that you take with you. And then from there, you're listening to other people through masks and through plexi. I wish that we could have a school board meeting in a classroom and we could set it up as students and you could see that it's not it's a very sterile atmosphere right now. It's difficult at best. So, I would like nothing better than to get back to the traditional normal schooling because nothing beats it. But unfortunately, again, we're in a pandemic.
Yeah, thank you, Lori. This I'm just going to ask a few things, and I'm going to tell a few things because again, we're all dealing with this since day one. And if you take it back just a little bit from the beginning, when we were making those really good conversations the board had, battling back and forth because, like John said before, we didn't know anything. And yeah, you're right, John. There's a lot of data that's out there. Nobody walks a mile in anybody's shoes. It's all different everywhere else. It's different everywhere in our own community. Everybody has challenges. Everybody has things they face. People don't understand us sometimes on the board, what we do, and they write these letters and they get nasty and they get really bad and they yell at everybody. And one of the things that I think we've got to understand more than anything is that people don't walk in our shoes either. And they don't understand what the board does. They think that we're hiding. They think that we're sitting back. That we're not making decisions. We don't want to do this. We don't want to do that. There are things, not bragging, boards behind us had great things, had bad things too. They had challenges and they overcome challenges too. And every board looks back and says, okay, this could have been done better. This could have been done better. But when we move forward, we look at the things like, you even look at the picture behind me, you look at the schools and all the stuff that even though these children cannot access these buildings to see the great things that have gone on in the past few years that we have done, it's frustrating to me, especially being chair of building and grounds and dealing with all the stuff. You can drive by and see a brand new scoreboard. That's great, but it doesn't help if the kids can't play on the football field. So there's a lot of challenges that we all face and we understand. And one of the things that I'm really proud about is the fact that the staff, and I'm not saying this and then turning around and doing things behind the staff. I understand the challenges and I see these things go on because I'm out there all the time with my business. This having a date, having a timeline helps a lot of parents. That's what I truly believe in, I truly care about. But I caution everybody too that going forward with phase 4 or going in with all in, at the beginning of the year, when this started, when you go back to March when this really started, I have a wife that actually works in the hospital. And she'll probably kill me for saying this, but it's very clear. There was nothing to worry about for them. Her floor has COVID patients, right? But they didn't have anything. So I wasn't worried about the steps and being methodical and doing the right things. If you go back, one of the best things to answer Maggie's question, I think as a board, we did a really great job of trying to do the right thing in the beginning. But one of the best things that I tried to yell at and I tried to say before, and I'll say it again, these things should have been done quarterly. These answers should have been done quarterly because then right now we'd be in number 2 answer, really, if we were making quarterly things. But I'm going to be clear on something. Having a date really does help. That's why I second the motion. But I also want to be clear that moving forward too fast doesn't help because, again, like I said, in the beginning of the year, my wife would come home and there was really no cases. When this whole Thanksgiving happened and Christmas and all that, now she's coming home in a different pattern. She has to take care of everything outside. She has to go in. She has to avoid all of us. She has to go upstairs, do her showering, stuff like that, because of the fact that now it's changed. There are a lot of cases for her to deal with. So I want to be clear that, again, I don't walk in anybody else's shoes. I walk in my own. My life has changed because of that situation, because of this whole situation. And I know everybody else has different challenges, and we have challenges with children. I have the same challenge with my child that deals with the online learning system too. And we've talked about this as a board member back and forth with somebody else on the board that I have, that we would joke when that my child went into school and then all of a sudden cases went up. I took my child because I was like, no, she doesn't have to go into school because we don't choose to. And then there were COVID cases in that classroom. So there's very clear, concise answers here in what we're trying to do. And I like the fact, Bob, and I'm asking you, Bob, you have walked this through with these people in these buildings. And I'd say this because I want the people out there to hear this, that this isn't a bully situation where you're telling them, no, I want to be in phase 2. I want this. I want that. This was really carefully thought through by the staff. Am I correct by saying that?
We've had a lot of discussions with the building administration and their leadership teams to come up with what we think is the best route forward.
Right. And this right here is the best route forward, correct?
That's where we're at right now.
Okay. And this to me also shows that we as you, Bob being the superintendent and Lori being soon to be the superintendent, that this is the methodical way to try to really help our children get the best education they can. I have also said before that one of the best things we should be doing is, like Maggie said before, why can't we do online learning and just improve it for right now when we first started this? Now I understand that we should have that methodical walking in and going through there. I don't agree with just throwing into phase 4 and then all of a sudden we have no backup plan. We have no situation that we can do anything with. At least in this situation, if I'm wrong, tell me, you can actually retract back into remote learning, correct, Bob?
Well, with what we're doing it and the way we're doing it, we can go faster if that presents itself, and we can slow it down if we need to. Hopefully, we won't need to slow it down.
Right.
But when I say slow it down, I mean on a daily basis. There may be situations where we have a class come out or whatever for contact tracing. I mean, we anticipate that that'll happen. But if the situation presents itself that we can speed things up, we certainly will do that.
Right. And also going back to the MOA where it does state, 6 feet. And I understand John's point where, that doesn't matter or anything like that, but it matters to our MOA and that matters to our staff. So we should be, at least as board members, making sure we're thinking about that and thinking about them when it comes to these decisions. So, again, I'm going to say it again. I like the fact that you worked really hard on this. I'm glad this got put together, and I'm glad you gave a date that really helps because it helps parents start to figure out and walk through the process with them. Thanks again.
All right, Ed.
Thank you. Just gonna, sorry to clear my throat in your ears. We've talked a lot about the challenges. I just want to make sure that at some point we take the time, whether it be in this meeting or not, to talk about the opportunities that have come from this. I know that we will. I feel confident that we will. Some questions and some comments, obviously, some initial comments about challenges and first specifically being with transportation. I think that we have to plan for 100% utilizing transportation as we get to a phase 4, but expect that there is such a thing as multimodal transportation. I ride my bike around the city quite often. I'm sure some students do. Maybe there's a chance to bolster that as an option as we look forward. Additional concern comments in regards to honoring what we've done in the past year in response to needs from staff. So I think I'm not sure what is in place currently for an FMLA policy, how that's been utilized. If that could be talked to for a second, I'd appreciate that.
FMLA has not changed. It has been there. It will be there. Obviously, if somebody has a need for Family Medical Leave Act and fits the criteria, then that's always available to them. That hasn't changed this year. The FMLA, whether it's been through COVID or not, that situation hasn't changed. The Families First Coronavirus Recovery Act, that has run out. That was good through December. It has, at this point, it has not been re-upped. So I think that might be what you're thinking about, Ed. That has run out, but FMLA has never changed.
Thank you for answering that. I think that there's potentially an opportunity to sort of come to a new agreement as we have this MOA under place for how we operate in our schools. Maybe there's an opportunity to bolster that with flexibility for staffing in the future. I think that as we've heard some more additional comments about the complexity of having a hybrid option, the complexity of, the challenge or the concern of removing a remote option sort of ties back to my initial question of the process to sign on to the Department of Education sanctioned or partner for remote learning. I don't know what the process is for that. I don't know if it's too late to do that. I don't know if we have enough time to discuss that within this time frame that's been proposed to allow for that option by the time that we get to a phase 4.
I think that the way I'll answer that, Ed, and Lori can certainly jump in at any point with this. Our teachers have used a variety of platforms and a variety of strategies when it comes to online learning. I know that they have used Zoom and Google and offered a variety of interactive lessons as well as standalone lessons that students can access later on. So I think that they've taken advantage of almost every opportunity. And quite frankly, they've asked for a few pieces of software and other things that we've purchased so that they would have that available. I can't speak highly enough of our staff and what they've done for remote learning.
Thank you for answering. Oh, sorry, Lori, were you going to make a comment?
Well, I was just going to say, I'm not sure that the DOE has, the DOE basically it lives by the live free or die motto, as we know, and have let many of these decisions up to the local school districts, which has its pluses and its challenges that go along with that. Some districts have, have partnered with, like VLAX, and maybe that's what you're talking about, but the DOE has not come forward and said, this is your other remote option. So I just want to make sure that that's clear if that's what you're talking about. So what the teachers here have done, and as Bob mentioned, we've purchased a number of various pieces of software from them, all those videos that you may see or various tools, and they have created the lessons that they have. And again, they work with each other. They do there's a lot of things, but it's not like the Department of Ed is saying, here's how you teach 4th grade social studies. That's not how this is done. They have worked incredibly hard in this district to put together what's here. So, I just want to make sure that that's, if you're thinking that there's something that's coming that's there, that's not how this is how this works.
If
you're speaking of VLAX, Ed, early on, I want to say probably July and August, the DOE was pushing VLAX as an opportunity for school districts, and a couple of school districts, Rochester being one of them, took advantage of that and enrolled a large number of students and quickly overran the capabilities of VLAX. And getting quite a bind because our remote lessons and instructions and instruction and things that our teachers do, we have complete control and ownership over those. And if we choose to utilize those in the future, those will be available to us. Where VLAX is, you enroll in it and it's not something that we own or control. It is a free service. It is an opportunity for some students, but I don't believe that it's a wholesale solution for any district.
Thank you so much, both of you. Those were very thorough answers. Definitely cleared where my mind was at in understanding both the aspect of what specifically. Maybe it was more so a recommendation that they said, oh, okay, well, here is a possible option that you can utilize for remote. It's good to know that that is out there. And as I mentioned before, I approach my decision making from an aspect of my own secondary education, being the most junior on this board, as the mayor would call me, junior. I look at it from that aspect. I've received education, both public, private, charter, and online in my professional career as well. And I know the difficulties that can come with the interaction aspect of it, with the learning aspect of it, with the retaining the knowledge aspect of it. Just some additional comments here in regards to the transition to phase 4. From what I've seen discussed, and unfortunately I haven't had very much time to look over the individualized plans, but I do feel confidence in the team that we have in place to manage the challenges, to manage their buildings. And I do want to make it clear that I have faith in them to overcome those challenges. And I do want to recognize, like both of you said, more specifically Lori, but and Bob previously, the hard work that's been done to craft a excellent model for virtual learning in this district. And that's why I keep mentioning opportunities. I want to look to the future. I want to look at how we can continue this through the future and continue to utilize it to bolster our offerings, to create flexibility, and to bring more people in that aren't traditional learners, and so on and so forth. Bob, I also appreciate, sorry, Dr. Gadomski, I appreciate your suggestion, and I'd take you up on it on doing a classroom exercise. And we've done in the Black Box Theater a nice exercise of showing what the size of what it would look like, and of a bus. And my hat's off to you for doing that. That was very helpful in my decision making process. Some just sort of last comments here, looking over my notes, wanting to make sure I'm getting everything off here. So in regards to, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of bouncing around here. I appreciate everyone sticking with me here. In regards to the MOA that specifies that we need to maintain a 6 feet distance, okay? Is it just that cut and dry, black and white, or could it be worked to a point of what we've looked at this from a point of what percentage of COVID do we want to allow in our buildings? So I'm thinking, what percentage is the staff okay with breaking that 6 foot distance?
And I jump in there, and I think not to cut you off, but I want to make sure that, there are some conversations that you may want to have about the MOA that you may want to have in a non-public session. I would remind you that this was a negotiated agreement, and I just don't want us to go down too far down a road. I'm also mindful that it's now almost 10 past 7. And I'm not, again, trying to cut you off. I know I have 5 other hands up, so I'd like to continue to move the conversation forward. So if you have any other closing comments.
We can parking lot that for sure. I appreciate that. Right. My last comment here that I'll close with on this would be from just what you've discussed so far is a sort of, let's see, let me flip back over here, is a March 15th timeline to get to a more hybrid. Can you give us a more specific date right now at this time? And if you can't, that's fine, of phase 4. Are we seeing that within this school year or not? Within what's been proposed?
That was in the plan that I just presented starting at May 3rd after the April break is the tentative timeline for phase 4. Again, as I said, that's a guess at this point, but that's something that we would shoot for.
Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, let's see. Cody, I believe you're next.
Thank you. I'll be quick. I just wanted to kind of, just as far as like consensus go for my fellow board members, and just wanted to say that I think I'll be voting no on this evening. I think I understand all the challenges that would come with this and some sacrifices and just negotiation that would have to go into this. But I do think I am an advocate for going into phase 4 sooner than May 3rd. And having, taking a harder look at if all the energy that is going to take to pull off phase 3 is the most appropriate course. And I respect the recommendations of the admin and superintendent and assistant superintendent tonight, but I am going to vote no on this.
Okay, sorry. Jerry email. I'm trying to like multitask. Jerry emailed me. She's trying to get in, so I was trying to resend her the link. John, you're next.
Thank you, Lori.
You're welcome.
Yeah, so one thing I just wanted to clarify, extending what Ed was talking about, the VLX option. I did some real-time research here. So just to clarify for anybody watching, if we go into phase 4, every student will have an opportunity to continue to go to school remotely. It may not be part of Somersworth, but vlacs.org, you can read the FAQs. You don't even have to enroll. In fact, if your intention is to go back to your old school, you could take a full course load, and it's free to all New Hampshire residents. So I just want to clarify that. The second thing is, and I know we won't want to get into any specific details or something that might delve into negotiating territory, but I want to ask a question about the MOA process, if I could. We've mentioned it many times in these workshop meetings and board meetings. It's come up several times today. Just from a process standpoint, Dr. Godomsky, you're saying, hey, this is something as a board you need to think about, you need to deal with. The MOA is not something that as a board we are dealing with. We do not have the ability as a board to say, great, let's go to the table and let's go and do this. So from a process standpoint, we've had phase 3, phase 4, on, our plans since August, right? And, so why is this still a barrier 5-6 months later when we've known all along that this is ultimately where we might want to go, and being able to look at the things? But I guess more importantly, like, what are you expecting of us as board members if you're saying, hey, we would like you to go, we need you to understand that the MOA is a constraint, we need you to be able to deal with it, and that presents barriers to us moving forward. What are you intending that we do with this? Because as board members, we have no ability to go and update that MOA or directly negotiate with the union.
You have the only authority to do that. I don't have, this is
me personally, like as an individual board members, like,
right.
Do we vote to say, let's re-enter into negotiations? I'm sorry.
It's like any other negotiated agreement, John. It's up to the board to have the negotiating team, whether, whatever the board chair sets as a team, just like they do with any committee, whether it's policy committee or any of those. And then it's up to the negotiating team to meet and negotiate in good faith, whether it's with the MOA or a collective bargaining agreement, and then bring it back to the entire board to basically say yes or no to any of the changes.
Okay, so to make sure that we're trying to address those hurdles that we keep bringing up over and over, we need Chairman Hanlon to drive that process forward and set up a negotiating committee and begin discussions.
We already have a negotiating committee. It's the one that's met with them a couple times already, and we have already reached out to them. We're waiting to hear back on a date.
Thank you.
John, did you have anything else?
No, I'm all right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, super. Thank you. Matt?
So a couple things. One, the MOA, we all looked at that. We all agreed upon it and ratified it. So it is what it is because we agreed to it. It's going to take both parties to agree to make a change. We can't just tear it up. But we have asked them to meet a couple times. They've met with us. We've asked again. They're going to meet tomorrow and get back to us with dates. So that's where we are on that. It's not something we say, hey, we're going to change it. So, forget about it. It's a ratified agreement. So that's the way it works. The next piece is I just wanted to kind of respond to Maggie a little bit about her question. It's tough. This is one of those things where this situation is, depending on how this has touched you, it can be deeply personal and deeply emotional on multiple aspects. And I think that's the crux of this whole problem. You can have people out there who have been extremely lucky and this hasn't even grazed their life other than minor inconveniences of not being able to go places or do what they used to do. You can have people who, it's really impacted them financially. It's impacted their home life because of, what's happening with their own children, struggles that they're having, things of that nature. You could also have people, I know that there's members of the public, there's members of our staff, who have been sick. Some have been very sick. Some have been hospitalized. Some of them, their families like mine, had deaths, like mine, multiple. And that changes the way you look at things. That affects your point of view in a certain way. When something has dramatically impacted your life and caused you or your family members pain, you view things in a different way. And that pain doesn't just have to be what I've experienced or my family's experienced. It could be my home life is horrible because of, what's going on with my kids and not getting my kids out of the house. And everything affects everybody differently. And I think that's why we're running into these issues. And I think that's also why people are saying we want a choice. And I get that. And Maggie, you and I have had this conversation before where I know people like to think I'm the grim reaper of remote learning, but you and I know we've talked, I have no problem getting kids in as long as there's still an option for those who have been touched by this in a way where they don't feel comfortable with it. Do you know what I mean? I have no problem with, if we can find a way to match things up, getting people in, as long as others aren't affected or they're not forced to either quit or be thrown to VLAX, which we don't control, and it's really not a great option. You know what I mean? That's where my issue is. I don't want to have staff make the decision, which has been thrown out there before among some of us in conversation. We know that it's been tossed out about they're going to have to make a decision on their employment. I don't want to do that. And we're at the point now where, keep in mind, we've had, I think, the most retirement requests that I can remember having in a year. People can just take their time at this point. You don't even need FLMLA. Teachers can just take their time. You know what I mean? We got to be very careful what we do with this MOA. And we got to be very careful and respectful about how we talk about our staff, about not having eyes on kids, or out in social media now, people are talking about, it's time for the teachers to get back to work. We've been seeing that from some of the people who write us repetitively. The teachers need to get back to work. Teachers are working. They say they made their decision to be a teacher. Now they need to go teach. There's a lot of things that are being thrown around. And I know it's very emotional, but we've got to be careful. And if we could find a way to make everybody happy, I'd go with it. And maybe that is some sort of phase 2, phase 3. But I am not going to jump just directly into a phase 4 and throw that hand grenade. I'm just not going to do it. Thank you.
Okay, so again, I'm looking at the clock. We're at about 7:15. Steve, you had your hand up, but you put it down. Are you all set, or did you have a comment that you wanted to make?
No, I'm just going to reiterate the fact that although the plan is not perfect, nothing is perfect in the sense that we've got to deal with this entire year. What I do take away as some positives is the fact that wish this was sooner, but now we have dates, and hopefully with wholeheartedly that these dates can be progressed through somewhat aggressively. However, with that in mind, and I've said this many times, I'll say it once again, we need to talk to the teachers union. We all agreed to an MOA, and in good faith, we owe them that. Thank
Okay.
you.
Todd, I believe you were next.
Thank you. Yeah, as I indicated before, the community is divided, and so is our board. I implore the board that to make a decision tonight, to move forward, whether it is a phase similar to a phase 3 or a 4. We have 8 board members here tonight, right? Not 9. So I can easily, as I'm reading the room, you know, I'm seeing a potential split in a couple of different directions. And I think the people expect us to make a decision tonight, and the children deserve for us to make a decision tonight. I'm about forward, and many of us received the same emails, similar emails. And the vast majority of the communications I received, including some phone calls, which I still appreciate, a little old school, I appreciate that, indicated they want to move forward. Very few just talked about full in. Some did. Very few talked about, remote until the end of the year. Some did. The vast majority talked forward. The vast majority talked about some sort of in, whatever that looks like. I'm concerned. I'm certainly not for staying the course, but I'm concerned that if we strive for, well, I think we should strive for phase 4, but I'm concerned if we put our feet in the sand on that tonight, potentially with who we have voting, that we're going to walk out of here with, you know, I guess it's a decision, but it's not a decision to move forward. So I think I think the plan as presented, I think that is a forward. It's not where I would prefer to be, but I think I owe it to my constituents to get out of the parking lot, as we've been talking about, and move forward. I will say that I would feel more comfortable voting for this motion if the intent, if we tightened the intent some on this, because there was some talk about, which made sense, of, you know, this can be fluid and it could be, we could slow it down. Oh, excuse me. The administration could potentially slow it down, can reverse course with changing dynamics, with changing situations. That makes sense. But I think the board should be part of that decision if it was a consistent reverse of course. If, you know, I'm not talking daily, day to day, isolated events, but I think that would give more control. I'll use the word control to the board there. So there's a stopgap of going in reverse as far as the board having that decision. But I think we need to make a decision. The parents, the children need us to make a decision tonight, whether it's at 7:20 or 10 o'clock or midnight. We need to move forward. Thank you.
Sean?
Agree with what board member Marsh just said there completely. I think one of the things that I just want to follow up on, because we were circling back, I had a question about the MOA. Chairman Hanlon mentioned that there was a committee formed and that there was at least the outreach to begin that, because I agree with Representative Potter, absolutely. Like we need to be doing this. We owe it to the staff. We owe it to all the teachers to to make sure that we're that we're proceeding in good faith, which I know we all are. Point of order I had on that was, well, first question I had was, can we improve the communication on what's going on with that? Because this has come up, and this is the first that I've been made aware that there was any outreach or that there was anything moving forward, or who was on that committee. But I did want to also just ask if those of us who have a family member, because I wasn't available for the last MOA vote. I think I was out of town at that point. So I wasn't involved in that original discussion. For any of us with spouses in, or direct family members who are union members in the district, because this is a union negotiation, should we be recusing ourselves? So when it gets to that point of negotiation, should those of us be not involved?
I'll take that real
I'll
quick.
let Nat go ahead and
Yeah.
answer that question,
So-
just because he's the one that's been in direct contact with them.
This group was put together a while ago. That's how we got to the MOA to begin with. So it's the same 3 people that have been on it from the beginning. It's myself, Steve Potter, the vice chair, and Tom McCallion for building and grounds, because that's an important piece of this conversation. There is no conflict of interest. We went through this before. I'll go through it publicly. The only way that you can get a conflict of interest is if something you are doing as a vote puts money directly in your pocket. That is not happening with this MOA. That's not what's happening. There is no financial tie to this MOA in any way, shape, or form. So there is no conflict of interest. And as far as communications, we've talked about how we've gone and spoken to them. We went out and had the original negotiation that came back with the MOA that we've all ratified. And as far as not reaching out to anybody yet, we just had that communication today.
Okay. Anything else, John?
No, I'm fine. Thank you.
Okay. All right. I just want to make a note again. I'm trying to watch the time. Jerry's been listening. There are a number of callers on, so I may have not seen you, Jerry. I was thinking you would be a G, so I had the call list in a different place. I'm having to watch. This is the challenge of running the meeting and being in the meeting, is I'm having to do multiple things, and I'm not always good at that. So I apologize, Jerry. I know Jerry's been listening for some
I've been
time.
listening to you folks.
Right. So I did want to acknowledge that I did now see Jerry, and I have moved Jerry into the meeting. So I did want to acknowledge that. I think it would be fair to give Jerry an opportunity at some point, and I'm not saying right now, because I do have a few other people that want to make some closing wrap-up comments before we get ready to take a vote. So Jerry, if I could just go to those that have raised their hands, and then I'll come back to you, and
Absolutely.
maybe at that point we'll be ready to vote on the motion.
Take the
So I
questions.
believe Maggie, you were next.
Thanks. The more I'm thinking about this, we received this today. I don't think it's robust enough or detailed enough to, I'm not sure if we're taking a vote today. I don't believe we are. I think we're bringing this to the school board next Tuesday to the meeting to vote upon. Is that correct?
I believe that Matt can jump in too. I believe the discussion in setting this meeting up was to make a decision tonight.
And
Yeah,
Maggie,
part of
the
the conversation at our last meeting was that we wanted to know if we had the availability to make a decision. So this is the board.
The availability?
Yeah, that was part of our discussion, wasn't it? I believe.
The availability of what?
Make a decision.
You have the ability to make this decision. You have a motion on the table.
Yes.
So you have the ability, you need to vote on that tonight. Maggie, did you have anything else?
Yeah, sorry, I almost froze. I mean, it's funny because I the educational welfare of the students is what I took this oath for, and that's why I'm here. The students and the majority of people are concerned about the overall welfare of their kids. And I'm just wondering with this plan, I mean, I'm not sure how many kids are coming in, if they're going to do remote there, the strain on the teachers. I believe that our MOA was created in August, and has it been adjusted since then?
No.
Okay, so it's the end of January. I mean, I'm deeply concerned for our school community, our teachers and our students, of course. The little ones, K-5, they are a vulnerable population, as our older kids, I think, need a little bit more social experiences. And I'm concerned about them not getting enough. Maybe it'll be one day a week. I believe the 6th grade and 3rd graders, they've had maybe 5 or 6 opportunities in the school building this year. Will they have, 10 opportunities? Will that be only 14 days the school year that will have kids, one individual student being able to go into the building? I don't know if I have enough information to really support this. I support having a date, but I don't believe this is enough definition to put my, and it impacts so many people. I'd love to speak to our admins and get a little bit more feedback, because I'm really concerned about everyone, and I'm isolated from our community because of COVID. So I'm not sure if this is going to be beneficial to our students. I want to have a date. I want to move forward, but there's so many dates and so many differing. I mean, 8th grade isn't going to start until the end. Is that fair? Is there equity in on how we're approaching this? I'm still unsure about this, and I'm, to just say, yep, just go ahead. And I'm not sure if they're going in for one day or what the situation is. I'm kind of at a loss. And for my stance on mental health, I'll always be concerned for our students first and foremost, but our staff. I mean, it'll be a year come mid-March that the majority of our students aren't in. That should be a concern for all of us, to have that every day for these majority of their kids not being in. It's a strain on everyone. So I'm not sure. I'll let others people speak, but it's very difficult at this point.
All right, Steve?
Thank you, Lori. I just wanted to make one last final comment. And this is based off of basically, we're lucky that we get to listen to each other, and we work as a board where we can greatly appreciate and understand each of our thoughts, opinions, directions, whatsoever. But I did want to highlight one that resonates with me that Board Member Marsh spoke about. And there's nothing easy in anything we do, but I firmly believe in some words he said, that we need to begin moving forward. With the fact that we need to move forward to show our community that we're willing to get through this and not just stay in the same doldrum that we are currently in. So thank you, Board Member Marsh, for bringing that up. Greatly appreciate it.
Okay, anything else, Steve? Okay, Ed?
Thanks. I appreciate everyone's participation. Sorry, there was some difficulties, Jerry. I do want to make sure I'm keeping my comments here brief. I know I've rambled on a little bit here, but I too was questioning not so much the ethics, but maybe yes, the legality of within Robert's rules being able to take a vote in a workshop setting. Having chaired a committee in the past, having attended workshops myself, I don't quite recall having voted and passed anything in a workshop setting. So I'm not sure if in the time of our last discussion, we had the opportunity to seek legal counsel on this or not. Can you answer that?
Yes, you can take a vote in a workshop setting. It's duly posted.
Okay.
And you have the ability to do that. You do that every single year when you have your budget workshop on Saturday. So you have the ability to do that.
Okay, thank you for reminding us and clarifying that. Just on one other additional, I feel very important piece of this continued conversation is, and Matt, if you could answer this, I'd appreciate that. In regards to, you had mentioned in regards to a conflict of interest, it had been previously determined that there to be none, and that's based off of, and I think this was mentioned based off of the city charter that was partially drafted with the help of the good representative Todd Marsh. Is that correct?
This has been gone over numerous times over the years. I haven't felt the need to go specifically to this because every time we do, we get the same answer. Todd, I don't know if you can expand on that. I know you've dealt with it a little bit more.
Right, as far as the ethics, the code of conduct and the city charter. Yeah, I was honored to be the primary author of that on the Charter Commission. And I was also the chair of the Ethics Commission that was set up from charter. From my perspective, based on the language in our city charter, it focuses on financial gain. As far as conflict of interest. So that's my
Thank
take.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I guess I would say that I agree with you. I feel we need to leave this workshop with a date. And so if I could implore my fellow representatives to help achieve that, I'd appreciate it. And I'm sure many other people would as well. Thank you.
Jerry?
I guess the big thing that I'm concerned about is the teachers. The MOA that we have in place is something that we need to work on and have their involvement, because they're a part of the equation as well. And I want to make sure that we're all in sync. So that's my big concern, is to make sure that everyone's in tune with the MOA and that we can move forward with that, so that the students are safe as well as our teachers are safe, so that we don't have any major problems there. And I think that's one of the things we need to do before we decide on a date.
Great, thank you, Jerry. Todd, last comment?
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. First, I want to say that I appreciate the this meeting being the decision being made to at least stream this meeting tonight. It's not normally done for workshops, but as I indicated at the last meeting, I think it's important for people not only to see the final result, but to see how we arrived at our decision. There's an old saying about watching sausage be made, so to speak, and I say that as a vegetarian. So I think it's important for that, for people to see that process. Final words regarding this. I think the reality is that the votes aren't there for phase 4. The votes aren't there for phase 4. And again, I think it's important to move forward. I respect everyone's reasons for voting the way they do. As you are aware, I was the lone vote against the phased approach. That's not an easy thing to do. It wasn't difficult either, but I was the lone vote against the phase, because I was hoping that we would have more on paper. There would be more flexibility. But I think a vote against this, is a vote against moving forward. Although again, I respect everyone's right and reasons why, as you did mine when I was the lone vote against the phase plan. But I will say, lastly, again, I am hoping that, and I'm not sure if this would require Board Member Potter's not necessarily an amendment, but additional wording to tighten up the intent where the district cannot move whatever words he wants to use. The district cannot move backwards unless we get school board consent with this plan. Again, barring isolated instances and day-to-day sort of things, but if there's a consistent reversal, I believe that should have board approval. And Board Member Potter, I appreciated your words earlier. Thank you.
You're welcome. Can I just clarify something? I'm going off memory here, but I thought we had a vote that gave Dr. Degomsky the power to move within any particular phase, or I'll say approved process for a week, and anything that resulted in over a week would require the school board to vote. So would that satisfy your thought, Board Member Marsh? That was a vote that, so basically Bob only has within a week to make a decision on his own. After a week, he has to come to us. Is that a correct recollection?
I will say that if we're going to stray, if this is approved for tonight, if we're going to stray off this, I'm going to give constant updates to the board every 2 weeks at their board meetings anyway. I don't anticipate going backwards unless it's absolutely necessary to do so. And if it's a situation where we have a direct COVID case and some grade level is quarantined, then it might be up to a 2-week quarantine, at which point I would bring that back to the board. So to your point, Todd, I'm not certainly going to arbitrarily back up for anything. Our goal and the assumption that I put right on the top of this is to get as many students in the building as soon as possible. So, you know, I don't anticipate a situation where we're deliberately going backwards.
Okay, so I'll take those words from you as well as Board Member Potter. Thank you.
Okay, Matt, you had your hand up.
No, I'm good between
You're
that.
good. Okay,
Well,
all right. Cody?
Yes, thanks. Yeah, I just want to say I'm absolutely for moving forward, and I respectfully disagree with the rationale you presented, Board Member Marsh. I don't think voting a no on this motion is a vote against moving forward. I think it's a vote against this plan. And I think it's very appropriate for us to share our own rationale about how we're voting, but I don't think it's fair to try to state a narrative, I guess, about what yes or no means philosophically when it is contrary to what I believe. Thanks.
Thank you, Cody. And final comment? And I would really like
yes,
to wrap this up if we could.
absolutely.
I'm not trying to cut you off, but
nope.
you all have been here for about 2 hours, and I
that's
want to help us move forward.
That's actually where my mind was. Speaking of moving forward, I would like to move the question to a vote.
Absolutely. Okay.
Second.
All right. Awesome. So the question that and the motion that Steve made about 2 hours ago was to accept the recommended timeline as presented. Correct, Steve?
That is correct.
Okay. So, and it was seconded by Tom. So I believe the next step would be for me to take a roll call vote. And so if you are voting yes, then you are voting in favor of accepting this timeline. And if you vote no, then you are not in favor of accepting this timeline. So I assume that's clear. Just sometimes the wording, I want to make sure we're clear on that. So I will go down the roll and please indicate your vote. Peggy Larson.
No.
Ed Lavasser.
No.
Matt Hanlon.
Yes.
Steve Potter.
Yes.
Todd Marsh.
Yes.
Cody Donahue.
No.
Tom McCallion.
Yes.
John O'Brien.
No.
And Jerry Cannon.
Yes.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The ayes have it. So this timeline is approved. So thank you for all of that. Thank you for your thoughtful discussion. Bob, do you have any other closing comments? I know we've talked about maybe there'd be a non-public. I don't know if that's necessary tonight.
Unless Matt has something, I don't think we need it for tonight. I just want to say thank you for all of the conversation. I know this is a very difficult decision. It is for all of us. I hope that you understand that all of us take this very seriously. I've been in education for 33 years, and I know my administrative team and staff members pain over their decisions and discussions every single day in trying to get kids back into school. We don't take these decisions lightly. We know kids need to be back in school, and we're doing everything we can with all of the pitfalls that are before us to do exactly that. And as I said in the assumptions, our goal is to get kids, as many kids as possible, in school as soon as possible. So we'll continue to use that as an assumption and work through the school year.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Ed, do you have one further comment or?
Sorry, yes, one further comment after the vote. And just to piggyback off of Bob's comments, that the hope is to move this along faster, that we can collectively, and this isn't just for us as a board, this is for everyone out there in the interwebs watching. I know no one's watching on cable. I was a little frustrated, but I appreciate the quick ability to make this process work and to put it out there for people to watch. We can push to work this to make this go faster by wearing a mask, by sanitizing, by social distancing, by limiting our gathering, to continuing to do that. We can work together to lobby the governor to include teachers K through 12 in a closer time frame for vaccine rollouts. I will be signing on to a letter from my fellow board member in Dover, urging the governor to do as such, and I urge my fellow board members to join me. Thank you.
Sorry. Don't we have a non-public after this?
No.
We set it up as a link just in case we needed it, but I don't believe we do.
I thought that, Lord, even with Ed's thing that Ed's questions to table those for non-public. I believe we
Actually,
yeah.
I have one quick thing that if we could enter into non-public that I'd like to address with the board.
Yeah, I second
That's
that.
possible. So there was a motion on the table to adjourn. I'll second that.
Right, you would need to adjourn this meeting, and then there's another link for the non-public.
Well, you should make a
vote to.
Or
you should make a, before you adjourn, you should make a motion to go into non-public if you're doing that.
agreed. Who made that motion so they could be withdrawn?
I'll make a motion to go into.
I'll withdraw it.
Do you want me to put the articles in there? Or
There needs to be a reason, yes.
About speaking about personnel and the MOA.
E,
Okay, so we'll go in under C and E.
C and E.
All right.
You
Thank
need
you.
you need a vote to do that. There should be a roll call vote to go in.
I didn't prepare those, but okay, so the vote is to go into non-public. Maggie Larson,
Yes.
Ed Lavasser,
Yes.
Matt Hanlon,
Yes.
Steve Potter,
Yes.
Todd Marsh,
Yes.
Cody Donahue,
Yes.
Tom McCallion,
Yes.
John O'Brien,
Yes.
and Jerry Cannon.
Yes.
Okay, to go into non-public, the link that I sent you, that's the non-public link. So we will leave this meeting. Give me about 30 seconds to open up that link and then you can.
And we,
join.
And
all right.
Just for the public knowledge, those who are streaming, we're not planning on returning to necessarily a public portion to discuss anything further,
No.
right?
No.
Right.
Okay. See you at the